Mr. President, I'd like to speak briefly on the President's nomination of Elena Kagan to the Supreme Court. The more we examined her record, there are concerns that her legal judgments might be infected by her very liberal, pretty clear liberal political views. We see strong evidence that in the Kagan memos as a clerk on the Supreme Court of the United States and in her work as domestic policy advisor in the White House for President Clinton, we see those strong political views. We see strong evidence of this during her time as dean at Harvard Law School. Perhaps to some in the elite progressive circles of academia, it's acceptable to discriminate against the patriots who fight and die for our freedoms, but the vast majority of Americans, I think, correctly know that such behavior is wrong. It has arrogance about it, and really it's not ethical. When Dean Kagan became dean in 2003, she inherited a policy of full equal access for the military, but she reversed that policy in clear, open defiance of federal law. She kicked the military out of the campus recruitment office as our troops at that very moment risked their lives in 2 wars overseas. Some have recently attempted to defend this conduct by arguing that she deigned to speak with the student veterans, to meet with them, to discuss whether they would coordinate a sort of second-class system for the recruiters who would come on campus to seek young men and women to serve as JAG officers. This all happened after she had defied the law and had shut down those official channels of recruitment at the official recruiting office. But the Harvard Student Veterans Association plainly expressed to Ms. Kagan in a letter to the entire law school that they lacked the resources to take the place of the campus office, now closed to the military. The letter read in part, quote, "Given our tiny membership, meager budget, and lack of any office space, we possess neither the time nor the resources to routinely schedule campus rooms or advertise extensively for outside organizations, as is the norm for most recruiting events," close quote. But Ms. Kagan was unmoved. Instead of welcoming the military recruiters on campus, she punished them, relegating them to second-class status, even leading student veterans to arrange recruiter meetings off campus. In fact, Dean Kagan's public comments contributed to a hostile on-campus environment for both recruiters and student veterans alike. In fact, she said she, quote, abhorred the military recruitment policy, blaming soldiers for the decisions of lawmakers in Congress and the President. She called it, quote, a moral injustice of the first order, close quote, and participated in a student protest opposing military recruiting on campus. And stunningly, she expressed sympathy for students and faculty to whom she said, quote, the military's presence on campus feels alienating, close quote. Those alienated by the military's presence were not the ones that really needed the sympathy. And they needed a history lesson. They had the freedom to complain and protest from the safety of Harvard's campus because of the blood and sacrifice of the men and women who wear our uniform. If you talk to student veterans who were on campus during 2004, 2005, you will learn that many of them felt exploited. Here were people who had just returned from battle in Iraq, dodging enemy gunfire, and they were supposed to quietly hustle the military recruiters through the back door and provide political cover for Dean Kagan. In a report for NPR, one student veteran who was there summed it up this way, quote, getting us to carry her water on military recruitment through the back door was a bridge too far. I came to view her as a very smooth political person, close quote. So Ms. Kagan said her mistreatment of the military was justified by her view that don't ask, don't tell was a moral injustice of the first order. But don't ask, don't tell was created and implemented by President Clinton Where was her outrage during the 5 years she served in the Clinton White House? Why would she blame the military? They didn't pass the rule. It was Congress and the president. So Ms. Kagan didn't take her stand in Washington when she was here, when the policy was adopted, but waited until she got to Harvard and stood in the way of hardworking military recruiters who had nothing to do with establishing the policy. And now information has come to light suggesting that Ms. Kagan may even have been less morally principled in her approach than has been portrayed. Around the same time that Dean Kagan was campaigning to exclude military recruiters, citing what she saw as the evils of don't ask, don't tell, Harvard University accepted $20 million from a member of the Saudi royal family to establish a center for Islamic studies and Sharia law. At the Obama State Department report concerning Saudi Arabia and the Sharia law concept noted, quote, on the Sharia as interpreted by Saudi Arabia's sexual activity between two persons of the same gender is punishable by death or flogging, close quote. So she was perfectly willing to obstruct the military, which has liberated countless Muslims from hate and tyranny of Saddam Hussein and the Taliban, but seems she was willing to sit on the sidelines as Harvard created a center funded by and dedicated to foreign leaders presiding over a legal system that would violate what would appear to be her positions. She fought the ability of our own soldiers to access campus resources, but not those who spread the oppressive tenets of Sharia-type law. Perhaps her response was guided by campus politics, but certainly Ms. Kagan lacks any experience as a judge or as a lawyer, and not much as a scholar of law, and hadn't written much. Much of her career has been spent on actively engaged in liberal politics, not legal practice. And there are serious questions as to whether she would be able to set aside that political agenda that has defined so much of her career. That's the test, I think, as we try to give a fair evaluation of this nominee. So these are important issues. She'll have an opportunity to discuss her views. I expect many Americans will be listening closely, but it will be important that any nominee to the Supreme Court be able to assure with great confidence the American people and this Senate that if confirmed, he or she would be faithful to the law, serve under the Constitution and not above it, and not have their political agenda infect their rulings, which must be non-political. I thank the chair and would yield the floor.